Yeah, great. Thank you so much. So, yeah, you just heard my talk, and now it's a pleasure to have experts in this space here. And I'm working at QuEra, so we are trying to develop applications for our quantum computers. Today I have the opportunity to pick the brains of all of you to actually understand what we should do, what we can do together to actually move into like this future I try to envision here. And so the goal of me as a moderator today is really like to get your thoughts on like what we as a community should do in this space and how we can actually get to true value, and we can discuss a little later what value actually means in this setting um, as fast as possible, basically. So to start off with, maybe like we can go through all the panelists very quickly, like 1 minute, like what do you think is the most exciting avenue at the moment? And also like maybe as a second follow-up, what is like, if you had the full powerful millions of qubit quantum computer, what would you do with that one? And then we can get started, yeah.
Okay, so wait, I will start. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, so I think the most promising at the moment are these. You presented a few of them. Are these hybrid models? I would say where you have classical machine learning but quantum enhanced machine learning to push the performance of these machine learning models. And I think one modality here is reservoir computing. Also, for I presented in my talk, I think these hybrid models and especially reservoir computing have a future or a near-term future. And I would say for the ultimate goal, if you have then fully fault tolerant, I would go with drug discovery there, because this it is the obvious call, but it's also the one that saves us millions, that gives the patient what they need, and what is the most promising.
So yeah, thank you for having me on the panel. So the most exciting avenue right now, I think, is still simulating quantum systems. I still think that this is a straightforward application of a quantum device, and then of course. Quantum systems can be very large and very complicated, and I think if you give me an unlimited number of like credits on the QuEra system, I would go around and calculate all of our molecules at the highest accuracy possible. And I think, like you asked about what defines success, and I think if we are able to give better answers and better predictions in that way, that would be a success for us in Boehringer Ingelheim.
Maybe I'll take a slightly different spin on that. If I could wish, I think I would wish for something that is sort of more general computing. If you think about the algorithms we're working with, it's basically matrix algebra or tensor algebra. So if we can come up with a paradigm where we actually can solve these sort of mathematical problems in a more efficient way, that will accelerate anything, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, over the last 2 years, we have looked into it extensively through our Q4Y program. And I agree with Matthias that one is definitely quantum simulation, especially molecular simulation that you encounter in drug development. Another thing, you asked for two. The second thing is I would like to go for complex optimization problems. It turns out in our program that there are many optimization problems, especially that involves higher order correlations, those sort of problem. They might be benefited more by a quantum simulator. So that would be my second pick.
Yeah, great. So in a sense, we're boiling down to the quantum chemistry and data science type of domain, and maybe even more general, like pure mathematics on a quantum computer, which is nice. I agree. Maybe like looping back a little bit to this kind of like making it more general. I mean, like adoption of new technology is not new in like the pharmaceutical domain, right? Like, I mean, making it more general is like, and deriving these types of equations is something you also can do with classical computers. So my question to you is actually, what can we learn from previous like high-tech adoption in like this industry? Like AI, I think, is becoming a player for molecular dynamics and other system things, and lead optimization as well. Of course, like HPC force field based force field calculations is also like to some extent something that at some point entered the drug design space. So like now with quantum, we're trying to do the same. And my question is basically what can we learn from these sort of previous technologies that were sort of integrated into workflows? And that's maybe something more for the pharma companies here to comment on. But is there something we can take to kind of accelerate the process to really drive value?
Yeah. So I want to say that indeed we have adopted many technologies, and we're not often the fastest adopters, but we eventually always do. And I think there you can learn that if it works, we will go for it. Like if it actually provides value and it has a proven track record of saving money, we will always do it. Or there are such high stakes in the health industry and in drug development in specific that we would always go for a better solution that decreases money and time to a feasible drug. So demonstrate use is what I would say.
Sure.
So I think from my point of view, it's more understanding what is good enough. Sometimes we strive for perfection, but the drug discovery process is never going for perfection. We have to make compromises, and computational methods or computational steps are not sort of rate limiting the overall development process. So if we want to be influential, we need to understand what is good enough to design our next experiment, and that goes for all modeling, all data science, modeling, everything.
I would add something there. I would agree, and I would conclude with set realistic expectations. I would say, because sometimes, we tend to set the expectations too high, and then they're not met, and then it's shown as a, let's say, failure. But in the first case, maybe the expectation were set too high. So really have realistic expectations, I think, is something we could learn from the past.
Yeah. So maybe picking up that point, like managing expectations is a challenging thing because there's a balance to be found of keeping the momentum alive, right? But still doing honest research and managing those expectations. So what should we do? And maybe that's also something where Shihan can chime in to really make sure that we can do the fundamental research we need to do to actually kind of get to figure out what is enough. And potentially not find it out within the next 1 year, 2 year, 3 year time frame, but still we have to do the work. And then it's a twofold question. On one hand is like, how do we fund this type of research? Is it like internal R&D in drug design companies, or is it like privately funded externally, or like through other institutions? And also like, how do we like keep stakeholders engaged to actually like allow us to do that type of work? So maybe Shihan, you can start with that.
I can first start. So if you look at public funding, they are mostly geared towards fundamental science, right? You develop the science in the lab, and that's only focused on the lab, on the science part. On the other hand, the private funding mostly are for near-term application, like the pharma that are funding create something that has a value, right? This is where I think, like in Wellcome Leap, we try to fund some fundamental science that is driven by use case scenario, right? So we don't create anything of immediate value, but we push the fundamental science to drive towards the value generation side. And we think we can also take this kind of approach. Like the funding institute can come. In our case, it was philanthropic funding that basically pushed this, but public funding can also combine with private funding on this kind of philanthropic funding. So generate something that lies somewhere in between. between fundamental science and value-driven immediate science. I think we also need that in case of this quantum for bioindustry.
I can build on that. Talk a little bit about how the situation looks like in Sweden. So we, AstraZeneca, is part of a consortium called Wallenberg Center for Quantum Technology. That's sort of private funding, sort of sponsoring a big program, but also a small part is sort of industry related. So it covers a lot of different technologies, both quantum computing and sensing and communication. So it attracts a lot of different type of industries. So that's sort of a great starting point. But for a pharma industry to actually, continuing and looking into this space, we will not be able to convince our senior stakeholders or senior management to invest like big time in this technology. We're not going to deliver or drive this development, but we need to be, able to play with it. So we need to create these arenas where we can get access to this sort of technology to play with, and that's how we engage. We engage with sort of doing science, basic science together. We don't expect it to be delivering value to our business, but it sort of creates recognition. And I think you alluded to it. All startups reach out to us and want to play with us. So yeah, it's a good week.
Yeah, my points would be twofold. So I think first thing is to be honest to executive levels as well. So I think we had some hard conversations in the beginning of the team because indeed expectations were not really aligned with reality. And then if you are not honest from the start, you'll like reality will catch up with you at some point, and then it's you get the stamp of failure, and then throughout the history of the company they will keep flagging this as no, and then you miss out when it really is a mature technology, of course. So yeah, that's not a good point. And then what we try to do is also do outreach in the company. So we talk to people that have nothing to do with quantum or with simulation, but are aware that we are investing, that are aware that we have 5 people, then they are paid a salary, they are paid some working budget, and what we do with that, why we do that, and so we don't only talk to this community, but also the community inside, and that gives us sort of a broader support, and people consider us part of the company, or they are proud that we are there. So that helps to get to carry on and be supported.
Sorry, on here I can build. So you said to have a realistic expectation, right? I think the language is very important here. So everybody from community and from funding, we should also use proper language. Like instead of using quantum computing is going to revolutionize drug design, we have to use quantum computer is going to boost this particular tool in the drug design workflow, right? And when funding agencies are launching projects, those goals should be also specific, so that by the end of the program or by the end of the funding period, we know whether the fund that has been invested, did it actually created value? Did it reach? I think if we take this kind of approach, whether for public or private funding, it actually gives us a better idea that it was a success and it will bring more funds for future.
I would totally agree on that. And I would say on your point that this failure stamp is weighs more than the potential funding you gain with, let's say, overhyping, I would say. And I would agree that you should communicate how it is and the most realistic you can, and then really have roadmaps. Also, I think it makes sense for also pharma companies to have roadmaps to really discuss these topics with senior management, because even though we are not there at the commercial level, we will come to this level. So it's important to have these discussions and then set realistic roadmaps.
Yeah, so that's an excellent point, and maybe my next question is actually following up on that again. So like we have like two solutions to this problem to some extent, right? Like you can either say we don't want to get this failure stamp and we just wait, but that is risky because then, as you pointed out, like one might just miss out to and hop on a train too late. Or you can like start working now, but then there's a big risk of actually not solving the problems we want to solve. And even more challenging, maybe from a project management perspective, is like we can like really focus on getting something done now, but not all the methods we might employ right now to solve those problems will translate all the way into the future. So there's a balance to be found. How much do we invest now, but also like more invest in terms of time rather than money in near-term demonstrations in this space versus developing the tools we will deploy. I don't want to say time scales, but in the future when we have large-scale quantum computers. So what are your thoughts on that? How to balance this sort of game of near-term versus long-term in an effective way?
I can start.
Uh-huh.
So I think in the near term, you can start with pinpointing the value, right? Where in your value chain, quantum can contribute the more. So find out the value. Then you have some workforce in your company or in an institute that understand the value and predict the progress of that value or that science and technology. So these are the things that you can do in the short term. Pinpoint the value, get proper people, and look for the community, where the community is going, how much funding is there, and how much the technology is moving. That's your near term to mid near term, right? And I'm gonna not talk about like 3-4 phases. I'm gonna say 2 phases. One is short to near term, another is mid to long term. In the mid to long term, when you have identified your value, you learn from your previous phase that people are going towards that value, the technology is moving forward towards that value. Next would be to now get those people, like who would be able to capture on that value that was created and integrate those value into your workforce, and then get more people, experienced people that can integrate that results into your chain. So that is kind of would be your middle to long term approach. So I think this could be a way that people can move forward or companies can move forward.
I think I'm a little bit more negative in that aspect.
Okay.
I don't think there is any near-term value from a pharma industry point of view.
I said not near-term value. I said pinpoint the value or the area where you can have value.
Yeah.
It's not that you are going to get that in the near term. Maybe it could be long term, but you have to act on that.
Yeah, you need to find the right space where it really matters, of course. And my point is probably, it's really early days, and it's really difficult to say which technology will be the one that rule them all in the future. But so that's why we engage on sort of a pre-competitive level. So I think that's really what I would like to convey is, we need to collaborate here, maybe across industry collaborations to really move the needle in a positive direction. I think there is long-term value, absolutely, but what is long-term? Long-term is probably longer than our stakeholder is prepared to wait. So we need to bridge that gap with different ways of working.
So I would agree on the near-term value. I think it's scientific value. You learn things about the system, and I think, for instance, Google's and probably also QuEra's approach is that each experiment needs to teach you something about what the next iteration of the device needs to do and needs to be capable of doing. And in that respect, yeah, you are carrying the risk of the near-term development. I mean, there's also the reward in the long term, of course. But yeah, I think I agree with Anders. We are sort of averse of carrying this near-term risk. We think there's hardly an application there. We would be very happy to be proven wrong, because that means that we get value earlier, right? We are not like, if it shows up, we are not going to deny that it exists or not partake in it. But yeah, we are also not optimistic that you can make like real value with near-term devices.
I would also agree on that. And you talked about bridging this gap between having, let's say, something near term or long term, and setting the expectation right. And I think this is an extremely difficult task to exactly balance the state we are at. And I think with every year, with every experiment, we learn more, and we have to adapt our expectations in real time, basically. But the as you mentioned, also the positive thing about this is that it's really difficult to get near-term value, is that we work together as a community to drive this topic. For example, in Germany, we also have a consortium. It's called QTAC, where the big players come together, also across industries, and work on different use cases, but have similar problems. And I think really the key point here is collaboration and work together, and get things going in this way.
Yeah, so maybe now, like, for the audience, I mean, I think in all of these answers, the term value was mentioned, I guess, like by now, like 10, 20 times. So maybe it is actually time to ask. I mean, you mentioned it in the beginning. It's like save money. It's for sure one way of value. As a scientist at heart, like, there is value in scientific discovery to some extent, but it's a different type of value, right? So I guess we have like a certain distribution of what value could mean here on the panel. Yeah, so what is your definition of true value in your space for these types of things?
Maybe I can start here.
Yeah.
I would say there are very different levels of value here. For example, one being that we saw, and also in the paper you presented with the QRC for molecular activity prediction, that we gain an advantage with smaller data sets. So I think this is also a value, but compared with, let's say, the big project, it's a smaller value. A big value is then maybe to be able to discover a new molecule with a method that would be, of course, in a completely other dimension, I would say. So there are different levels, from, let's say, quantum enhanced methods, where we really gain a small advantage over classical, to discovering a whole new molecule that would not be possible with classical methods.
So for us, it's all about making better decisions about our molecules. So every pharma company comes up in sort of rankings of how many failed like trials you have, medical trials at the end of the drug discovery period, and you just want to avoid those and get more successful molecules out. And that just means that percentually you want to make better decisions, and that just means having better data. Because I agree with Anders, you're never making the perfect molecule that doesn't have any side effects, that binds magically to this one protein that you care for. So it's all about better data makes you make better decisions, and then you have on average a better outcome. Yeah, over the years. I mean, you won't see it next week.
Very much on the same page. I mean, we usually phrase it as, increase probability of technical success. That's what you can get out from like more data, more insight into your sort of understanding of your problem. The other true value is, of course, if we can remove something very costly from a critical path, so the development path. So in our case, we are responsible for scaling up chemistry. So we go from like a couple of grams of material to hundreds of kilos of material. and that takes time to sort of design and make that process, which usually is on a critical path. So if we can do modeling that sort of get us out off the critical path and get sort of better yield, but basically more affordable synthesis, that's really true value for the business.
So I'm gonna talk from like funding side, from where I am. So you presented today that imagine a future where we want to be in a place where quantum was used for generating drug for myotonic dystrophy, AMR, Parkinson, and Alzheimer, right? It's a long path. We want to go from point A to all the way to point B. To me, value is whatever steps we can take towards that direction, that is a value, right? And I know at this moment we are not near point B, but slowly we are making progress through tiny steps. And each of these tiny steps is value for me.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point, and maybe kind of along those lines, it is a question like the way I see it is drug discovery, development, computational chemistry actually are sort of in a way incremental disciplines. Like typically, it's not that there's a revolution and you do everything different, right? At least, I mean, please chime in if that's not the case. But it's like slowly adopting and like adding new tools to the pipeline. And what we're talking about when we say like true value or transformative value, it's more like this like pivotal point in time where we expect something flips, right? So how do you? Let's now again like thinking about the envisioning the future. And also what steps we have to take. Like, will it be like the small steps incrementally integrating things, or do you see a point where like there will be this turning point in the drug design process where we start to like, it's just like now we want to use it? Is it like once we reach this point in the P450 plot where the curves cross maybe, where we just like immediately say now is the time to flip, or will it slowly be integrated? How do you anticipate that to happen? Maybe you can start because I mentioned P450. So.
So I think you can envision it when quantum companies will not be treated as quantum companies. When you come to us like any other service provider that says, I now can do something better for you. Here's a POC that we did. Then we give you molecules. You do it on our terms, and then you provide value again. And then we say, okay, we buy your product, we put it in production, and we don't touch it anymore. That's where you are no longer a research project, but you are in production. And I think, at some point, quantum needs to move to the production phase, and then that's where I see that.
I would say incremental, sort of augment what we already have. You need to remember that it's not like one calculation and then you get the final answer. We have a, it's about throughput as well. So we need to turn this engine around over and over and over again. And that needs to be with speed. And speed that is greater than what, the people can do in the lab. And cheaper, right? And more energy efficient, if you want to add more stuff. But it's actually sort of quite, a challenge to beat some of the experimental work. Just where we are today.
Yeah, I also think it will be incremental steps, and also those increments will be forward and also sometimes backward, because there will be people who will claim at some point, look, this is where I am adding value that classical cannot do. After some time, there will be another people from a group from classical side will show that actually classical can do better. So there will be these back and forth, forward, backward steps. And eventually, I mean, I see it as a path from point A to point B, and I think it will be incremental. There could be some giant leaps, but eventually it's a combination of incremental steps that we're waiting for.
I want to touch on that. I don't think there's going to be a back and forward. The pharma companies, if you only provide like a 1% increase, we will not do it. If you provide 10%, it's hard for anyone to catch up, right? And the next one needs to be 10% better again. So that's sort of how we guard ourselves against the hype of the day by setting like, if we want to change our workflow, it has to be a big step forward, or people will not care for the time and the effort to turn over workflows and to change things. So, and if you then establish this 10% increase, the next you set the bar higher for the next guy again. So this flip-flopping, I doubt it will happen in production. But yeah.
I would agree on production, right? So, but I have to say we have to distinguish there then production and research, basically, because in research I would totally agree that we have this back and forth. That
I was referring to research, by
yes.
the way, not production.
Yeah, and in research actually, I think it is a back and forth, so step forward and then backward for quantum. But as a society in whole, it's just forward, because if the quantum technology leads to better classical algorithms, that's still a success, and that's still better algorithms for us and for us as a company. So in this case, for research, I would agree that's a back and forth, but a win for us in general. But in production, as you mentioned, it's we do not do small small. It's too costly for small steps.
I think it's going to be complementary. So if you think about when GPUs became sort of rolled out in a little bit larger quantities, when the gaming industry sort of started to blossom. Of course, we thought as a sort of computational chemist, we could try to use GPUs to do things that are fit for purpose on them, like molecular dynamics and some linear algebra. I'll come back to that. But it took time for us to adopt and take that on. I mean, this sort of explosion of new technology started maybe around 2000, depending on what you look at, when molecular dynamics actually make a difference in running on GPUs is like 5 years ago or something like that, maybe 10. But it took like 15 years to go from mature technology to industry application. Yeah. So if we can do that faster with quantum, that would be nice.
Yeah, agreed. So yeah, maybe we're almost running towards the end. Now is the time to also open up the floor for questions from the audience, if there are some. I mean, I also have more questions based on what you all just said, but I want to give the audience members also an opportunity to ask questions if there are some. So any questions to our panelists?
I do have a question. So I really like this discussion about the value, and I hear that it's really about making better decisions and accelerating the processes. And I'm wondering if there's space in the pharma industry for not only accelerating the processes, but also widening the class of compounds that we can be interested in. So instead of just going for the same, traditional molecules and making it better and better and faster, can we also start thinking about widening the class of compounds that we study, like maybe more like photosensitive drugs or things like these are a little bit more exotic? Yeah.
I can start. So, of course, a lot of things we have been discussing here is focusing on small molecules. But that's obviously not the only modality we are looking into. We as a company are pursuing, 15, 20 different modalities, from biologics to more synthetic, peptides, mRNA, ASOs. You can name a modality and we are working on it. So I don't think, modeling will come up with a new modality, but it might actually help more than just small molecules in the future. Absolutely.
So I think it's possible, but it will go through a same adoption cycle of proving and then getting slowly incorporated into what we do.
And that's a long cycle there.
And then there's some risk averseness, and you need to convince people to do new things, not only their things better. So that's hard.
For example, like chiral drugs, they're not studied at all now in the pharma industry because of all the problems we know, and also because it's hard to characterize them experimentally, and because it's hard to simulate them, simulate the spectroscopy. And so I'm wondering if you can actually make progress on the simulation side. Will it open again, like the pharmaceutical research to this new class of, not new class, but this class of compounds that we've discarded because we actually don't know how to study them?
But I think it's clear from like your explanation, it could work, but it involves 1 or 2 or 3 steps from where we are now, and each step needs to be proven, and each step has the chance of failure. And in that respect, we're taking a greedy approach and sort of taking the lowest hanging fruit currently. And it's a higher risk, I would say.
I really didn't understand what you started with. Did you say chiral compounds? I mean, a lot of drugs are chiral, so there's no problem with that at all.
Okay, we can take this.
Yeah.
I think there's another question up here.
Thanks for your discussion. I wondered your view on the convergence of quantum computing with other quantum technologies. So say, for example, quantum sensing and quantum biology, because I imagine if a quantum computer could get hold of quantum data in the term of quantum biological information, and with the improvement of quantum sensing, do bear in mind this is not near term at all, but I'm wondering if the quantum mechanics of biology was understood better, and that quantum biological data could go into a quantum computer. Could that convergence actually be a pivot point or transformation?
So I know there's some algorithms that learn better on quantum data. I think it's Jared McLean, but the problem of taking your data from a quantum sensor into a quantum computer is that you just make a larger quantum computer, and now your sensor needs to be coherent with your quantum computer, and that's just a very messy biological thing, and I don't know if that is even possible.
I think quantum sensing is absolutely something that is going to be useful for pharma industry. It's not like we're going to drive that development, but we're certainly going to use that technology to understand biology in greater detail. So non-invasive measurements of deep tissue phenomena would absolutely be the first quantum application that really make a difference.
But in this setting, it gives you higher accuracy data through quantum measurement, right? Not a quantum wave function that you could use in a further process.
No, it's just better, analytics. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would agree on that this is a very, very promising field in quantum bio, also quantum sensing, and of course. If you could have a quantum sensing and then quantum computing combined and then have a, let's say, quantum pipeline, that would be, let's say, the dream. But there are really a lot of challenges here, and not only on the hardware side, but also on the algorithmic side. So you have to really develop good algorithms, and this is for our use cases now very, very difficult at this moment. So then to combine quantum sensing with quantum computing is, I would say, even more challenging.
So I agree that you can use quantum sensors for your quantum biology problems. There are ways you can use them. In order to use quantum computing, you actually have to find the link, how the power of quantum computing can solve a particular problem, which in turn has a link with quantum biology. Unless you find that, it will be still I'm not sure what happens in that case. But definitely quantum sensing has lots of value in quantum biology.
I think there is something around base pair mismatching or misfolding that is sort of got driven by quantum phenomena like proton dynamics. So that's a field that we have sort of scratched the surface on, but not really pursued. I think we didn't even put the application into Quantum for Bio for that, and was not funded.
Yeah. Like there are, for example, we heard about this radical pair mechanism, right? There are these hypotheses. There are some data that says the radical oxide that is produced, they have in turn linked to those phenomena. And actually, you can use maybe quantum computer to study those radical oxide generation. But I didn't find any concrete paper or research yet. But
Yeah, I mean,
Someone needs to be the first.
yeah.
so I think we are running out of time. I guess we should wrap up. I want to finish with one sentence sort of answer from all of you. So we heard many conditions, like we need a product, which is more like a black box. We need to generate value. So maybe your one sentence, we have folks from different industries here. Of course, the quantum industry in particular. What do you want to give us as a quantum, computing industry on the way? What do we have to focus on for the next year? So one sentence, all of you, and then I think we can close the panel.
All right, so then I will start. I think the most important keyword here is collaboration and co-design. So in my opinion, you have to work, the computational chemist has to work together with the quantum scientist, and the quantum scientist has to really understand what the computational chemist wants, what the problem is, and then they have to work together and design a co-design algorithm for that.
Great. Yeah, the same thing but shorter. Yeah, work together.
Okay.
I agree.
Wonderful. And then Shihan.
Same from here.
Perfect. That's a perfect ending to a great panel. Thank you all so much. Let's thank all our panelists, and thanks for the great discussion.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.